Wait, there's something very weak coming through.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, fellow Galactic listeners. I'm Todd Hoffman, and this is WSTR Galactic Public Access, a Star Wars podcast. Welcome to episode 101. Today, we're going to be talking to a very special guest, Cam Sharpe. Also with us is, Aaron, Julian, and Heather Allred disappeared tonight. I don't know where they're at. They're stuck in the Outer Rim, but we wish them back shortly. But we have, like I said, we have a very special guest, Cam Sharpe. How are you, Cam?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, no problem.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. And yes, you can get a free Audible book, 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/WSTR. They have over 425,000 titles on your iPhone, Android, or Kindle or MP3 player. You can listen to it for free. Once again, it's www.audible.com/WSTR. You can get all your free Audible books there. Again, 30-day free trial. If you don't like it, you can say, I don't want you anymore, and but you get to keep the book for free. Once again, you can catch us out on the social media at WSTR Media, all one word, all lowercase. You can email us at mailbox@wstrmedia.com. Leave us voicemail at 630-557-WSTR. That's 630-557-9787. And then if you want to catch our back catalog of episodes, that's podcast.wstrmedia.com. And that's where you can find out all our episodes. We also got merch. You can get our merch at store.wstrmedia.com. That's all the ways you can get a hold of us. In the news, we got a little teaser for you. We got Endgame, Turn In Your Homework, and Punch It. So those will be later on in the episode. All right, on to our main topic.
And now for our feature presentation.
All right, Cam. So give us a little background for our listeners, like who you are, what do you do, a little bit in the Star Wars community.
Hey there, I'm Cam Sharpe. I am a visual effects and digital artist based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I've been a digital and visual effects artist for a couple years now. I've graduated film school, and I mainly do Star Wars and the occasional Marvel type of artwork.
Okay.
I used to do artwork, well, still do, but it's been pushed back in terms of priorities. Artwork using Star Wars Black Series action figures, where I would take photos of them and then put them into new backgrounds and try and make them look like professional promo pictures for the toys.
Yeah.
But ever since I've been doing the retro posters for the Star Wars films, I've been slowly transitioning to using live action assets after seeing artists such as Boss Logic on Instagram do phenomenal work using Marvel and DC and UFC fighters in his work.
Okay.
So that's pretty much my deal right now.
Okay. So how did you go to school for art or film?
I went to film school from 2014 to 2017 in an advanced diploma program. Graduated in 2017. 3 years seems odd for some people that may be listening going, wait, isn't college 4 years? No, my program was 3 years. I didn't drop out or anything in the third year.
Right.
So I completed it. And through that, I discovered I wanted to be a visual effects artist because I tried my hand in directing, producing, sound, pretty much everything. I realized, man, I hate all these things. But I tried visual effects, and I thought, this is the coolest thing.
Cool.
Because you can do so many different things with visual effects, and like I could spend so long just talking about just the different subcategories and things.
Yeah.
But specifically in terms of visual effects, I specialize in compositing, which is the art form of combining multiple images to create a new cohesive image.
Okay.
And then
can you kind of break that down? Can you break that down a little bit? Yeah.
So the easiest way to someone that isn't too familiar with visual effects to understand what compositing is would be if you know what green screens are and having someone in front of a green screen and then putting a new background behind them, that is a form of compositing. You remove the green screen in software, you find or create the background behind them, you put those two elements together, and then you do little things to try and merge those elements so they look seamless.
Right. And to the naked eye, it doesn't look any different.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I also do other elements in compositing, subcategories within compositing, such as rotoscoping, which is the art form of tracing around subjects frame by frame and extracting them from a background. Paintwork, which would be trying to digitally cover something up that needs to be not in the shot, such as there was a movie I worked on last year where one of the scenes was inside of a convenience store. And it was shot in Canada, but it was supposed to be set in Brooklyn. There were a few Canadian flags that were visible, and we didn't have permission to use the logos for Nestle, Pepsi, or Coke. So I had to digitally remove all those by myself. So it took a while because it was about 18 shots in total. And the shots were very long, and there were people moving in front of the logos, so that involved rotoscoping, digitally cutting them out so I could put the cover-ups of the logos behind them, tracking the shot so I can match the camera movement, because there's a lot of different things that add up to it, and I'm by no means the highest level of profession in terms of a roto digital compositor. I'm still very much on the lower end in terms of stuff I've worked on and then what I consider to be my skill set. But I would say that it is a really cool art form, and I do hope to get to a point one day where I can go to, say, movie theater for a wide release film and take a family member there and go, hey, see that big paragraph at the end where there's like a million different people, some from Mumbai, some from Japan, some from the US, and then like a bunch from Canada. I'm like 5 columns down to the left.
Exactly. Well, because you're waiting for like the other end scene to happen after the end credits. So it's like you're in between that, like the second and third like end scene, that's me,
So, that is something that I'm always striving for. And then through digital art, which is something I just got into through pure curiosity and just fun. Something that I would definitely love to achieve with that is eventually being able to get commission work for bigger clients, especially for, say, toy companies, or for, like, ideally, I would love for Hasbro one day to just contact me and go like, oh, we love your work. You want to work for us? Because I literally have behind me a giant shelf full of Black Series figures. Spanning from prequels all the way to the sequel trilogy. And then on the other side of me, I have a desk full of Marvel Legends and Funko Pops. So to say I'm a big fan of Hasbro's action figure work is an understatement. But,
So, kind of talk to me a little bit about what you were doing with the Black Series figures.
So what I would do was I would take a photo or multiple photos of the action figure downstairs in this tiny little makeshift studio I have in my basement, where I would have a bunch of lamps set up. I have some colored paper gels to put in front of the lamps if I want to have, say, a red shift go over, let red light go over the figure, or a blue light, orange light, etc. And I have a white background. So say if I were to take the Black Series DJ figure and I put him in front of there, I would take a bunch of photos in the pose I want him to be ideally in. I would take one of those photos into Photoshop, and I would remove the background, because the background would be white and he's mainly darker hue colors. It would be very simple to extract it. And then because I would take multiple photographs and I would change the lighting in those photographs, I could just use the one picture where I had the background removed and just use the outline for that to remove the backgrounds for the other ones instantaneously.
Right.
And then I could just combine those together and then start making the background, add lighting in Photoshop, add texturing, create more contrast, do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I actually even got one of my photos that I did earlier this year featured in it isn't currently running, but a limited edition toy magazine.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's called the 100 Project. It's by a company called the Exclude Collective.
Okay.
Yeah, you can still view it digitally online. You just can't get print copies as of now.
Right, yeah.
Because after the deadline passed for it, I had a bunch of people message me once I got my copy going, "Oh, where can I get a copy?" I said, a month ago. But what I did was I did a shot recreating Ahsoka versus Darth Vader from the Rebels Season 2 finale, where in the background you see the Sith Temple with the light beam bursting up, and it's in between them. Ahsoka is diving towards Vader. It's a really epic looking shot, and that one was pretty much all Photoshop except for the figures partially, but I did a lot of Photoshop work on there because I could go into detail explaining how half the lighting highlights on Ahsoka are fake.
Okay.
Like those aren't shot realistically. Yeah. Okay. I think I still have the original photos that I used as the template for Ahsoka and Vader. So
cool.
Maybe one day I'll do a before and after just so people can go, oh my gosh.
It's kind of like in your space, that's kind of like the subtlety is what kind of sells it. So you don't know like, oh, this was, like you have two action figures just kind of posing, but all the other things that are going behind the nuances, that's what sets up that shot to be amazing. So seeing that kind of before and after would definitely be kind of a cool little thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, oh, the final product is awesome, but you're like, yeah, it took me like 1,000 steps to get there,
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I love discussing just the creative little nuances and little Easter eggs I did. I won't go into this too much, but the project that I did before the Star Wars retro posters was I converted every single character in The Office into Marvel characters.
Yeah, I was going to get to that later, but since you brought it up, why don't we talk about this now?
I did that, okay, yeah, I'll just bring that up quickly.
For listeners,
since this is a Star Wars podcast, but it's a cool little thing.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So since you brought it up, let's talk through it. So obviously, the Avengers is very hot, and so you took the Office, Michael Scott, and his crew, and you made them Avengers, correct? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is correct. So what I did was...
So why don't you kind of talk about that?
Actually, I didn't come up with this idea. My girlfriend did, because she's a huge... Yeah. She's a huge Marvel fan and a huge Office fan as well. And she mentioned the idea, oh, this would be a cool idea, making... I think she mentioned Michael as Iron Man or Kevin as the Hulk. And I said... I should do everyone as The Office because there's obviously already James Spader plays both Robert California and Ultron, and then Idris Elba plays Charles Miner and Heimdall. So those ones are already baked in. But figuring out who would fit with who and then maintaining character relationships. Because, for example, Jim fits Captain America because John Krasinski almost was Captain America. And also, out of all the characters, that's the one he fits best in my mind. And
sure,
someone needs to be Winter Soldier, but who has the closest relationship to Jim in The Office? Pam. So Pam is the Winter Soldier. Yeah. And obviously some characters have to be gender swapped because there's no perfect alignment of some characters being male, some characters being female with Marvel to The Office. But
of course,
such is life. And I tried to include in every single poster a reference to each character, like a little joke about the character. Yeah. So Michael has the world's best boss mug. Jim is holding the stapler in the Jell-O, but he also has the golden face on the side of his face to reference Threat Level Midnight. And then my favorite one is, this is even though this is from later in the show, it's still one of the best Jim pranks. The Asian Jim prank. I have Asian Jim as Wong.
Yes.
So.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I did about 30 of those.
I saw those and I was like, oh my gosh, I love The Office too. And just the fact that you had the idea to kind of merge those two together, it is kind of fantastic. But like you said, like James Spader was already kind of baked in there, you know, and you know, and the guy from Thor, I'm so blanking on his name. Yeah, exactly. He's already there too. So it's like, that's such a great idea. So why don't we take a step back and where did your passion for Star Wars come from?
All right, so I don't have as cool of an answer as most people where they say, oh, I watched this film for the first time and it blew my mind away. What I did was, before I was into Star Wars, I was huge into Lego Bionicle and Lego in general.
Okay.
And I got...
Okay, cool.
This was... I can remember the exact month. It was February 2004, about a few weeks before my 8th birthday. I remember getting that month's Lego magazine, and I was flipping through it, and I saw one of the pages was one of the micro-scale sets of the Republic gunship from Attack of the Clones. And I saw that, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I told my mom, I need to get this. Even though it was $8, I was like, this is like the thing my life has been building towards, getting this one set. And then from there, it just slowly built and built and built. I remember as a kid, I would get a bunch of various Star Wars merchandise. Like I would get a bunch of the books, I would get a bunch of the Lego, I would get a bunch of the toys. In fact, a family friend of mine, when I was 10 or 11, he actually gave me his old collection of Star Wars merchandise from the 70s, which are all in mint condition.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. And then when I got into my teenage years, I, was less interested in Star Wars. But then about when I was 17, I decided, hey, I just want to look up the opening scene from Revenge of the Sith, since I remembered liking that scene as a kid. I rewatched that scene on YouTube, and that instantly got me back into it. From there, I went back up into becoming a huge Star Wars fan, and now is not ideally, it is basically my identity at this point. Which, yeah. So now I have a room where I have countless Star Wars action figures on my shelf. I have a 1978 Star Wars poster hanging behind my bed. I have just various Star Wars merch just around my room. And now I can say I have my own Star Wars fan work hanging here, which is awesome. And I'm glad once we get into the posters, I can explain some of the cool stories that have come out of these posters. But I'm glad that I got Solo specifically printed, because that one has a special place in my heart now, especially after what happened when I originally posted it.
Gotcha. All right. So now you say that Star Wars is your identity. What's one of the things that you kind of latched onto now that you kind of rediscovered Star Wars for yourself?
Let's see. I think I came into Star Wars back at the right time, because it was right before Force Awakens was starting to unveil slowly, because I came back in 2013 and it was, I was just starting to see like some rumors as to what was happening with the movie and such like that. And then 2014, I started college, I was getting a new friend group and all that. And then I remember one of the best days of my life was the Force Awakens teaser dropping. I initially thought that they were only going to show it in theaters. So I bought a ticket to Big Hero 6 that night so I could see it in theaters. And then that morning, I saw they dropped it online, and I was losing it. I was replaying it over and over again. And then just that whole year was just the build up slowly to The Force Awakens. I remember where I was when the second trailer came out in April of 2015 with Han and Chewie at the end. And I remember it was the night when the main trailer came out for The Force Awakens, the one in October of that year.
Okay.
That one, it was really special because it was the night before I was going to go to Ottawa for one day to shoot a documentary. And Ottawa from Toronto is like a 6-hour drive. So we were spend all day on the road there and back shooting the documentary. It was also the night of the Canadian federal election. So I was like looking at the results there, as well as waiting for the Star Wars trailer to drop.
Okay.
And I remember one of my crewmates, she needed to crash at my place before we went to the documentary because we were leaving at like 3 a.m. So she recorded me while I reacted to the trailer, and I was just like losing my mind.
Losing your mind?
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then obviously when the movie came out, and then every subsequent year except for this year, with having each movie come out in December, and it feels like a big thing in its own, that would be awesome. Which is why I miss Solo not coming out this December, just because it feels like such a great thing having Star Wars in December.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it kind of it's like right before Christmas, and then you watch a little Star Wars, have Christmas, and then the next week a lot of people are off work, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go back and see some more Star Wars. So exactly. I'm gonna miss that definitely as we're getting kind of approaching that Star Wars release kind of period for December, and there's nothing there this year. So all right, so. I'm on Twitter, I'm looking at stuff, and I see these awesome kind of retro posters, and I'm like, this is so cool. And so why don't we step into, and I reached out to you, I'm like, I want to know what's going on with these. So why don't we start with The Force Awakens? So if you're not familiar, listeners, you have to go, you're basically taking the 1977 kind of classic A New Hope poster, a design where Luke is kind of holding the lightsaber up and Princess Leia is like kind of on his leg. I forget what they call that poster. I don't know if that's trying to think if that's there's a specific name for that poster, but basically that's the kind of design you're kind of mimicking. So why don't you kind of walk us through each of these posters? So you mentioned The Force Awakens, let's start with The Force Awakens with the design. So can you kind of walk us through your kind of thought process behind the design?
Okay. So with The Force Awakens, that one, Force Awakens was actually the fourth one I did, but I based it off of the design precedent I started with Solo. So obviously have one character be in the Luke position, one be in the Leia position. I need to have two characters be in the R2 and 3PO position. And then there needs to be a big menacing threat behind them. And they need to be standing on rocks. And there needs to be something coming from the left side, like something that would be emitting some sort of light source. So for this one, I didn't want to do just another ship. I thought this was a really unique opportunity to do Star Killer Base. Just have the laser beam come out from the side there, and that would be a nice contrast with the blue lightsaber of Rey. Especially because I love the way the light emits on Rey, Kylo, and Finn when they're fighting in the forest on Star Killer. That's something that I tried to emit with both those two. And then Poe and BB-8, they were just there because I wanted them to be on the poster, but I wasn't so concerned with having I need them to look exactly right with the Star Killer. And then with Kylo, I also wanted to make sure he was the light for Rey's lightsaber was exactly in the middle of him to show his conflict with the light and the dark. So this one's very bare bones in terms of its symbolism, but I like it. And my main thing that I really like on there is, like I said, was trying to do a little bit of a recreation of the Star Killer forest fight lighting with the red and the blue and all that. And then just go into the credits thing. I try to not make every poster the same for the sequel trilogy or have like the same character be in the same spot, which is why I have Rey in the main hero spot here, but then I have Kylo in the main hero spot for The Last Jedi. And then same thing with the producer tag. I decided to go producer tag because producer was the role that was in the middle on the original poster. It was written and directed, but obviously I can only do directed for 3 of the new ones, and then produce and then music. So I stick with those 3. And I decided each one I want to do a different producer on there. I don't want to do just one producer for all of them. So I figured Kathleen Kennedy will get The Force Awakens, and then I can change him for each one depending on like a new producer that's on one. And then for the starring thing, obviously for the new trilogy, it has to have Daisy, John, and Adam on there. But for Force Awakens, I said, all right, Oscar's going to get 3rd billing, and then Harrison Ford's going to get the and billing.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. That is super cool. That's great. Okay. So that came out in 2015. So we'll go right to 2016 with Rogue One. So explain your design a little bit again for Rogue One.
Okay. So for Rogue One, what I wanted to do with this one was originally I wanted it just be the Death Star plans would be the thing that Jyn would be holding up and would be emitting as her beam to replace the lightsaber. But I couldn't get it to look right. So I originally thought, okay, she's just going to hold the plans or whatever. But I always knew the Death Star was going to be the big bad behind her. I was working
instead of So Vader's in the original, and like you just explained, Kylo's in the background in Force Awakens. So now the Death Star is the menacing object in the background.
Yeah. And I was working on this thing in the middle of the night. I remember when I was, near completion of it, and I had the idea once I realized it, I could make Jyn's blaster beam be one of the Death Star ignition beams that go to the center. Yeah. And it fits with the story, with her connection to the Death Star and all that. And then obviously I had to have Cassian there in the Leia position. And then I figured, okay, either I can have Baze and Chirrut in the R2-3PO position, or I can have Bodhi and K2. I went with Bodhi and K2 because I already have Alan Tudyk on the poster, and it's really either of those could work, but because both of them have a darker color scheme just in terms of their costumes, I think it just looked better just having the green reflect on them with that.
Okay, I'm following you.
And then with the ships in the top right, I just grabbed some images from the film of Veratus, the Hammerhead Corvette, and then a few other ships. I didn't want to make it too overcrowded just because the rest of the poster is already really crowded with the Death Star in the background. So I made it a bit lighter.
Yeah, and there's that negative space. You don't want to have too much there. Like you said, you don't want to have too much there on that left side because it is in the original. There's not too much going on the left side of the poster either. So
exactly. Yeah. And then with this one,
you don't want to have like 20, like the whole Rebel Armada like in that little space. It just doesn't work. But yeah, it's cool that you picked Veratus and their Hammerhead and like a Rebel frigate there. That's cool. I like it.
And then I also wanted to have color contrasts with the green, so I had the red beam coming from Cassian because red and green are complementary to each other.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's kind of cool. And he's like, I like it that he's like in the sniper position too.
Yeah,
I kind of like that. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In terms of the credits, and the producer for this one, I chose Alison Shermer for this one because she was the producer who passed away before Solo came out, and I felt like she should deserve one of the credits on here.
Nice. Yeah.
Since I already have Kathleen as one, as you'll see later, I'll have Ram and then Lorna Miller as producing. Right. So I figured she would fit perfectly for this one. And then obviously Gareth Edwards direct, Michael Giacchino to music, then Felicity, Diego, Allen, Ben, and Mads on there.
Yeah,
and,
cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so Last Jedi.
All right, this is interesting because
design-wise, this is I find this very interesting that in this position you have kind of Luke as the menacing character, which they kind of did in the official poster as well. So it's not terribly left field, but it is interesting that you kind of went with this route for this poster design. So kind of walk us through this one.
Okay, so for this one, there's a lot of things I want to talk about this one because aside from Solo, this is easily my favorite one that I've done. It also doesn't help that Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, so
okay, well, we might have to table that for a second. Yeah, okay, but go ahead.
Okay, so for this one, I knew that I didn't want to do a thing of repeating the same main character in the hero pose for any posters. Since if I was to do the entire saga, I don't want to have Luke for 3 posters, Anakin for 3 posters, and then Rey ideally for 3 posters.
Right.
So I wanted to do the original idea.
It's kind of, I mean, honestly, it's like lazy designing too. It's like, I was just gonna say, it's like lazy designing. You know, like, oh, I'm gonna have, you know, since Rey is the hero character, I'm just gonna have Rey in the 3, you know, sequel trilogy posters. But I really like that you have Kylo in the hero position here.
Yeah. The original idea that I had when I was just getting the rough idea for The Force Awakens and Last Jedi was it would be Finn in the hero position for 7 because I consider him also to be the main character of 7, and then Rey in the hero position for 8. But then I got the idea of, oh wait, what happens if I have Kylo in the hero position for 7 or 8, and then Rey in the hero position for 7? So and also is a nice parallel because if you compare 7 versus 8. The colors are swapped where red's coming from the left side coming down and then blue is the center color. And then in 8, it's blue coming up and then red coming up in the center. So for this one, And then this one, I represented all 3 major storylines. So on the left, you see the representation of Poe and Holdo's storyline with Holdo's light speed going towards Snoke's ship. In the center, you have Rey, Kylo, and Luke. And then on the right, you have Finn and Rose. So you have their storylines all represented there. And then there's a Porg in the bottom.
Yeah, you had to throw in the Porg. I mean, it's it's cool too because again, you have the kind of like that cliff, going on, and I think it's fair enough. There's a Porg. It has to be a Porg. Yeah, that's great.
And then there are other things that I like doing about it with just the little glows on Luke's hood and his nose with Kylo's saber and having a little red in there. And like you said earlier, having Luke as the big bad in there. Well, like I said, how, in my opinion, Force Awakens is just as much Finn's story as it is Rey's. For me, The Last Jedi is like a 3-person story in a way. It's a story for Rey, it's a story for Luke, and it's a story for Kylo. So from Kylo's perspective, Luke's the villain. And that's also why I love the sequel trilogy so far, and Kylo specifically, because you could easily look through his vantage point and go like, he sees Luke as a villain. He sees Han as a villain. He sees Snoke as a villain in 8. And, this one I like a lot just with also the way how I design Kylo's saber because it's multiple saber glows combined together, and then obviously the cross guard and all that. And then for this one, I knew that I didn't want to do, once again, having Daisy, John, Oscar, and Adam as the main 4. So for this one, I swapped out Oscar with Kelly. And I figure that works because this is her only movie so far where she has the big role. So having those 4 in there, and then having Mark Hamill, and then having produced by Ram Bergman, since it's the only one he's produced so far. So, that way it's not the same for each time. And I've already mapped out kind of how I want the prequels to go. So, and this is a bit of a spoiler for Phantom Menace. Jar Jar's going to be on the poster, and Ahmed Best is going to be credited.
Nice.
He's going to be in like the side position, like the R2-3PO position, but
makes sense.
It's the movie where Jar Jar has the most prominence, so he should be on the poster.
Of course.
Regardless of what people's opinions are of the character, it's movies where they're really prominent. So, so it's a different poster each
Yeah.
time, because if it's the same characters on there but slightly tweaked design, it isn't as fun anymore.
Yeah.
And it feels like,
You're
especially
absolutely
if
right.
you get to a point where you want to collect them, you feel like you're getting the same poster twice.
Yes. Yep. All right. So that's The Last Jedi, and now now we move on to Solo. So Solo is actually the first one you actually did in this kind of retro design, correct? Okay, so
Yes.
let's walk through Solo.
Solo was actually the first. I actually had the idea for Solo for months. But originally it was just the idea of, in the vein of that Last Jedi teaser poster with Rey, Luke, and Kylo, but instead just having Han and Enfys. But then it morphed into the idea of, wait, I could just do it as a retro poster. And originally I was just doing it as a little exercise to see if I could do it. And then, doing little things like, obviously Han, his arm with the blaster, it isn't up like that in the original photo that I got Han from. And his head isn't looking up like that. His head's looking straight forward.
Right.
So that's a completely different head from a photograph that isn't even colored the correct way. So I did a lot of those things changing around.
Yeah.
And this one, since this was the first one, this was me just pretty much trying to emulate the design of a New Hope poster. So I wanted to do like the curved energy beam of the ship. I wanted to just do the basic beam going up. Obviously, I had to do something in the top left corner to represent what the Death Star was. So I did the Maelstrom monster.
Yeah.
And then obviously I did Han and Kira as the main two, and then Lando and Chewie back there. And then for this one, obviously Alden, Donald, Amelia, Paul Bettany, and Woody as the 5 main, and then directed by Ron Howard. And then I decided to do Lord and Miller as the producers. Because I'm a huge fan of theirs. Like, I love the Lego Movie. I love the Jump Street movies.
Love the Lego Movie.
And I also saw Into the Spider-Verse this past Saturday, which they were executive producers on. And that movie is phenomenal. So, and they directed the first version of this movie, and they had a big part in at least shaping the movie. So I felt like it wouldn't be right not to have them on the poster.
Right,
but,
exactly. And
so I'm going to get into...
And they were credited. I mean, again, they did do a lot of the movies, so they were credited,
But now I'm going to get into a bit of a story on this poster in general, because this, because this is also... the poster that made me just drop my jaw when I saw the reaction it got online. So,
you tweet, you get it all designed out, you tweak it, you're like, I think this is good. So then do you post this on Twitter? Is that what you did? Yeah,
that's what I did. I posted it on Twitter, and I also posted it on my personal Facebook page, which is just private, so my friends and family could see it.
Sure.
And at first I just tagged Ron, Star Wars, and John Kasdan. And then afterwards, I didn't know what the success would be with that, so I figured, I'm going to tag Black Series Rebels, Future of the Force, Star Wars Explained, and Gritty, the Philadelphia Flyers mascot.
Okay.
Just because I figured, I don't know what Gritty's like, but I appreciate his existence, so you never know if he's into Star Wars. So then, like a few minutes later, I see a bunch of retweets and likes come in from a bunch of accounts, and I just see it slowly going up and up. And I think like within an hour, it was at 100 likes or so. And I don't get that much traffic on anything, so I was like, "What the shit is this?
I'm onto something here." Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was getting pretty excited, and I was texting my girlfriend about it, since we were going to hang out later that day and go see Wreck-It Ralph 2. Wreck-It Ralph 2 will be very important to this story later.
Okay.
And, I'm just watching numbers slowly go up. I'm also just watching stuff on YouTube or Netflix or whatever. Probably watching The Office at the time. And
sure, of course.
And then I see another retweet comes in, and another like comes in, and I look to see who it is, and I see it's Anthony Bresnikan. I'm hoping I pronounced that name right. He's the reporter from Entertainment Weekly who always breaks the news for Star Wars content.
All right.
And I know who he is, and I'm like, wait, what? why did he retweet it? But I thought that was insanely awesome that he did. And I see more and more people coming to like and retweet it. And later in the day, before we go see the movie, I'm at McDonald's and I forget what her full name is. It's Michelle something. I think her last name starts with a B. She worked. I think her profile says that she's either working on StarWars.com or she helps run the Star Wars Twitter account or something like that.
Okay.
And I saw that she liked it and replied to it going like, this is so awesome. And I turned to my girlfriend and I said, someone that works for Star Wars saw my thing. And, you know, I was, to me, I thought that was going to be the best of it. Yeah. And before we go see the movie, we're in the theater and I say, I'm about to turn off my phone.
Right.
There's I tell her, there's probably a good chance that when I turn back on, there's probably going to be another big name that sees it. Yeah. But I also thought there's no way that someone big is going to see it at all.
Sure.
So I turn off my phone.
At this point, you're already kind of riding cloud nine. You're like, yeah, this is cool. This is great. You know, so turn off the phone. Okay.
Yeah. And also, side note, earlier in the day, the actress who plays Emphas Nest saw it on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was really cool, too. Yeah. So I turn off my phone, watch the movie. Wreck-It Ralph 2, by the way, is very good. I recommend people seeing it.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it.
So I finished the movie. Credits come up. I turn back on my phone. I turn data on. And I go to Twitter, and it takes a few seconds to load notifications.
Of course.
Yeah. Notifications load up. And I start scrolling down, a lot of praise. And I'm like, oh, it still feels awesome seeing all these people like my stuff.
Yeah.
And then I see a white check mark. And then I look up next to the white check mark, and it says John Kasdan.
Oh,
and I see his response, and he says he says, love this. Wish this could have been our official poster. Then he also says, kind of wish that there was a writing credit name in there. And then he says, other than that, perfect. And I'm losing my mind right after Wreck-It Ralph. And I just turn to my girlfriend, and I try not to scream, but I'm probably just quiet screaming to her. And I'm saying, John Kasdan saw my poster. And she doesn't know Star Wars that well. I only introduced it to her this year. So she's like, wait, who's John Kasdan again? And I said, he co-wrote Solo. And then she realized, oh, this is a big deal.
Yeah, this is big. Yeah.
And so I was just losing my mind with that. Because to me, I feel like at that moment I peaked in terms of my accomplishments in Star Wars fandom. The fact that the writer of Solo says, we wish this could have been our official poster. Because to me, Star Wars posters are as ingrained to the movies as having anyone that worked within the movies themselves are.
Yeah.
So
again, you're absolutely right. They have the title, even now in the Disney realm, I mean, they have the title reveal, and then they have that poster. That first poster kind of, it's a sneak peek into what the film is going to be about. And it's very much an event as much as the trailers are still,
Yeah. So having, like I said, one of the writers of the movie and also the son of Lawrence Kasdan say such high praise that, I was pretty much done after that. I was just, and on the bus ride home, I was just losing my mind, very audibly. All the other people on the bus, I don't know if they even cared about me just blabbing this to my girlfriend, because I was probably saying a lot of the words someone from Star Wars saw this, or and it was really surreal, and I still get excited thinking about it, which is why Solo is so far the only one I've gotten printed, and why it has a special place in my heart, because of such a response that I got. And I had it hang on my wall right now. I got a nice little frame from Walmart to put it in.
Nice.
I also need to hang up a couple of posters I've had printed for months. This is just a little side note, but I got a poster I did of the Marvel Legends Wasp figure signed by Evangeline Lilly at Fan Expo.
Oh, nice.
So I need to get that hung, since I now have a frame for it that's actually a vertical frame.
Right.
Then I have another frame. I have another poster I did of the Black Series figures, but of Darth Maul fighting Qui-Gon on Tatooine.
Okay.
It's really cool. It's similar to a poster I did with Ahsoka and Darth Vader, where it looks like a freeze frame and Darth Maul's jumping at Qui-Gon off of his speeder when in the scene in The Phantom Menace when Qui-Gon and Anakin are running towards the Naboo starfighter, and then Darth Maul comes up and attacks Qui-Gon.
Wow.
So, with the Solo poster, I was, I can't even get proper words out of it still, even though it's been 3 weeks now since that happened. And I remember, what was it? I think the next time I went to work after that weekend, I couldn't even go in on that Monday because I was so excited about the poster. I messed up my sleep schedule so bad that I didn't fall asleep, and I had to text my boss that morning and say, I'm going to work from home today. So, and I had to tell him the reason why. And then when I went in the next day, I showed everyone at work everything that happened. And
you're like, you're not going to believe this.
Yeah. And my boss even mentioned, all right, Cam's going to be too busy for us now that Disney's going to be calling him up about his posters. And, hey, if Disney wants to get me to do any sort of work for them, I will do it. It's I don't care. Even if it's just a little side gig thing where, hey, this is just going to be a small little thing, we can pay you this much, I'll be yes, I will do it.
Yes.
But so far, actually...
Well, no, I mean, they do commissions all the time. So it's not out of reason that could happen,
Yeah. I think that's why I was telling my girlfriend on the ride home from the bus after John Kasdan saw the poster. I said, I'm within a small percentage chance of eventually getting Disney or Star Wars to commission work from me, which would be the coolest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. I mean, they could say, hey, we want you to do something for Topps trading cards or something, even something simple as that. It's that would be great. Yeah. I mean,
that'd be great.
I think I like the other thing about the Solo poster I like is the way the Falcon is coming and the design of that coming towards kind of Effie's Nest helmet is that's very similar to the TIE fighters that were in the original poster too, which I think is kind of a cool homage too. So it's cool, man. I dig it. So that's a fun little story about that poster, and I'm glad that you're continuing, these designs with this retro look.
Yeah. So I feel I should also bring up when the prequel posters will be coming.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So right now I have very vaguely started Revenge of the Sith. I have the template of the credits all built, and I have some of the characters up there, but right now I need to actually do the photoshopping work of getting Anakin to look right, since Anakin will be the center character for Revenge of the Sith, and it's going to mirror The Last Jedi because Obi-Wan will be the big bad behind him.
Oh, nice. I get it.
Yeah. So I'll do that. But right now, I'm not trying to get it out by a certain date, just because with Christmas coming up, I doubt that there'll be as much time for me to get for as many eyeballs as possible, because people are so concerned with doing their own thing. And if anything, I'll wait until January now to release it. I originally wanted to get the prequels released a couple weeks ago and get everything released by this week, but I decided, you know what, I'm just going to hold back on that and make sure that I get my stuff out when it's a more quieter time in terms of things that are happening. Nothing's happening in January. I can start getting stuff out then. And then also for people who are interested in getting prints of my work, right now I'm still trying to find a print-on-demand website that best suits me in terms of getting out at an affordable price for people. Getting it so I can get paid properly, because PayPal doesn't like me. I've explained this story before we start recording, but PayPal doesn't like me at all. And then also just being able to get out to as many people as possible.
Right, yeah.
And I also want to hold off on releasing the Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones, and Phantom Menace posters until I have a print storefront up. So that way as many people can see it as possible. So right now, if you're anticipating buying a print, don't hold your breath until January. If you really, really, really want a print of one of them, you can follow me on Twitter and send me a message, and we can try and work something out. It'll probably be more expensive because I'll have to personally get it printed at Staples and then ship it to you.
There's logistics. Exactly. Exactly.
Which is why I would have to do the print on demand.
I don't want to be your marketing person, but I'm just going to give you the suggestion because if you could believe this, the 20th anniversary of the Phantom Menace is next May.
Yeah.
So
I would absolutely love that.
Might be wise. Yeah, it might be wise to drop the episode 1 poster like April, May-ish because of the 20th anniversary.
You never know.
That would be
never know.
That'd be fantastic, So
I also love that the 20th anniversary of the Phantom Menace is literally the same year episode 9 comes out.
Yeah. Weird, right?
Yeah, it's weird but cool. And also, I listened to another podcast over the weekend, and someone mentioned it would be really cool seeing some sort of homage to the Phantom Menace in episode 9, since it's the start and the end, and it's also the 20th anniversary.
Yeah. You could go deep down that rabbit hole because it's like, oh, okay, now the prequel and the sequel trilogy, one started and now it's ending. The Luke Skywalker, kind of the Skywalker saga. So that's kind of interesting, very interesting indeed. All right, so you mentioned this before, and I think we'll kind of end on this part. Is you said that The Last Jedi is your favorite Star Wars film? So
indeed it is.
Why don't you just take a minute to kind of decompress of what are some of the things that you like about The Last Jedi, because that obviously, as you know, and from a Twitter perspective, that's not what what happened after Last Jedi release. So why don't you kind of explain some of the highlights for you?
Okay, so also to start off, I don't really hate any Star Wars film. Even Attack of the Clones has a special place in my heart, and that's my least favorite one.
Yeah.
So
it's Star Wars. So it's like there's. I always say to people that really hate something or really dislike something, it's like there's always something you could take out of it, whether it's not your favorite. It's still new, fresh Star Wars. So, but that's kind of my take on it. So, all right. So go ahead with The Last Jedi.
My main thing why I like it so much and why it's my favorite Star Wars film is I personally love the take on Luke, because I love the take of having this old hero who has such a legacy and is a legend, such as Wolverine in Logan. And then you see him after his heyday and something happened to him and he's now fallen from grace and we need to figure out why, and getting the eventual rise back up, which is why I found it very satisfying having the movie start with him rejecting Rey's invitation to rejoin the fight and seeing, all the different things as to what happened, and doing different takes on things that have already happened. Something that I've really loved is how they showed how Ben Solo became Kylo Ren from 3 different perspectives. They showed Luke showing it in a watered down version, then how Kylo saw it, and then how Luke saw it. And with Luke's final vision, which is the one which Ryan would have intended for the audience to take away as the main vision, because it was the one they showed last, and it's from Luke, is he had a moment similar to Return of the Jedi, where he had that moment of dark side with Darth Vader, where he was about to, where he had the lightsaber to Vader's throat. He had those angry eyes in him. Then he looked at his own hand, looked at Vader's hand, and he saw that moment of regret. And but when that happened with Kylo, instead of having the reward of it was the catalyst to turn his father back to the light,
Right.
it did the reverse. It turned his nephew to the dark, which I thought was brilliant. And then this movie also has a few of my personal favorite Star Wars scenes ever. Like, I absolutely love Paige Tico's scene with the bomber. That scene was phenomenal because in that 2-minute sequence that she's in, she becomes the star of the movie, and it's just so thrilling, especially when you watch it for the first time in theaters.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I obviously love the whole,
and you got real emotion there. You know, there's real emotion there. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I very much love the throne room scene, and because when I watched it the first time, I said, "There's no way they're going to kill Snoke," and then they killed Snoke, and then they had that incredible fight with the guards. And there's so many cool things that happen there.
Yeah, the colors there, it's just, it's really well shot. Yeah.
I love Holdo's scene where she light speeds through the Star Destroyers and how it basically culminates all 3 storylines into one moment, which is also kind of what I want to get with the Last Jedi poster, having all 3 storylines represented there, and then having Holdo's light speed there as a physical metaphor for these are all the storylines come together in one moment. And then obviously then my favorite scene in all of Star Wars is actually the scene where Luke says goodbye to Leia. Like, it isn't an action scene or anything like that. I love that scene because it took on a new meaning after Carrie Fisher's death, because not only does it feel like Luke saying goodbye to Leia, it feels like Mark saying goodbye to Carrie. And then add on to that when Luke fulfills his arc where he walks out to the First Order with a laser sword. That was just so satisfying for me, and I can still distinctly remember in the theater me grabbing my best friend's hand as that was happening, and just my mouth was just open, and it felt like, the whole movie, you're like, all right, Luke, you're eventually going to get back to being the Luke that we know and love. And then he does.
The hero Luke, basically. Yes.
Yeah. And he becomes a hero by saving people, not by the legends that people came up with Luke, which I also think was the story of Luke rejecting those legends because Luke doesn't feel like he lives up to those in a way, is also a good metaphor as to how we, like, in our world, we've interpreted Luke over the past 30 years, how we interpreted him as this larger-than-life, godlike character, when realistically, he's just as human as all of us. He makes those mistakes, and he can fall from grace, but he can also be an inspiration. So yeah, those are the reasons why I love The Last Jedi and why it's my favorite Star Wars movie. And I can go through like a lot of reasons why I love every Star Wars movie, but these ones to me are just the strongest points.
Yeah. I know. I mean, we could sit here and talk shop for hours, but no, I really appreciate that because again, like that's not a popular opinion. Really with The Last Jedi, and I loved again my 2 favorite. Well, my favorite thing out of the sequel trilogies is Kylo Ren. I think he's fantastic, and I'm very interested to see how they take him in Episode 9. But I definitely was on the I like what they did with Luke and his story arc for The Last Jedi, and I really felt that the way they did it was the way I wanted it, because I agree. I don't, it's like he's kind of a hero fell from grace, and I just loved how they did all that, and how he's portrayed. I think it's well done, and it met definitely a lot of flack, but I'm really happy with how it was portrayed, and I'm interesting to see again too how he's going to be used. From a Jedi Ghost perspective, I guess would be the way in Episode 9 if that's going to happen. I'm very interested to see how that's going to be used. So, and the one him when you realize he's not there at Crates is probably my moment. Like, oh, that was amazing. But really, for me, from my perspective, it was really the Yoda moment was probably my second favorite. You know, just like seeing Yoda and stuff like that. So yeah, but yeah, it's rich with imagery, and like you said, I think any Star Wars film, it resonates differently for everyone. So I'm glad that Last Jedi is one of your favorites. So, well, why don't we? Thanks again, really, for sharing your visions and how those posters came about. So you're working on the prequels. Are you going to do Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi? Have you thought about that?
I feel like that at this point I have to do all the saga films. And
right. So you're gonna leave A New Hope. You're not gonna touch that, but you're gonna do Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah,
I've also I told this to someone on Instagram through DM just because they asked me if I was going to do Clone Wars and Rebels, and I said yeah, and I'm also going to do the holiday special.
Oh yes, we just covered the holiday special not too long ago in one of our episodes, and yeah, that's also a very special one. That would be, you know, holiday special doesn't get a lot of love, so having an actual poster, that would be pretty fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah. So you are going to do Rebels as well?
Yeah. So
cool,
I have ideas for what I want to do with that one, and then Clone Wars, and then obviously I have the Empire and Jedi planned out too, but I'm not doing those yet. Obviously, I want to do the prequels first, but right now I don't think I'll be finishing any of the next retro posters until January, because also I've actually gotten some offers for doing some poster work in the meantime because of these posters. Because when I went to the screening for a movie I worked on last week, there was there was some guy who was a producer. He came over to the table I was at, where it was the whole VFX crew for the movie, and I'm also a visual effects artist. In case that wasn't clear to anyone listening, but he asked what we all did, and then I can't remember if I mentioned it or someone mentioned it for me about how I did all these posters, and I handed my business card.
You're the poster guy.
Yeah. And he saw my business cards, and my business cards are literally just the action figure posters that I've made of Rey, Kylo, Darth Vader, and the Wasp. And he was losing his mind out of them. And then I showed him the Solo one, and he said, "Hey, here's my business card. Contact me, and we can get into something about doing some work." And then someone that I worked with the previous year, he actually contacted me after he saw the Solo poster, and he asked if I could do a poster for the film I worked on with him the past year. So there's a bunch of things coming up. Plus, also, I want to just try some other things in the meantime, since there's no pressure to get anything like immediately done for the retro posters. Just experiment with some stuff.
Yeah. Cool, man. Hey, like I said, you never know what doors can be opened, and that's fantastic. Like you said, just what you shared, I think that's great, and that's part of Star Wars. You know, you never know who's going to see what, and that can open up doors for all kinds of different things. So that's great. And like you said, I mean, there's not a lot of pressure there, so you do have time to kind of design them out. And obviously, we're all anticipating the Episode 9 title reveal, and they're in the official poster for that movie would help kind of drive your that kind of retro style for you as we get closer to I mean, we got a year, man. It's crazy. We still got a year before that happens, but we should be getting a title hopefully very soon on that. So
hopefully once there's a bunch of images, at least of the characters for Episode 9 coming out, so I can create a poster for that. Because that's something I remember someone asked me, I think when the Last Jedi poster came out, they said, "Oh, can you do a poster for Episode 9? I said, "I don't know anything about Episode 9. And I said, "Well, basically your idea as to what should happen." And I said, "I have no idea what should happen." So I'm not J.J. Abrams. I can't really say this is what should happen in the movie or this is what I think is going to happen. So if anything, I'll wait until April if they get like good images out. If not, it wouldn't be until the fall usually, and when they get like the promo images out for the characters.
Well, I mean, like you said, you don't want to. The other thing is you don't want to like, oh, I'm going to make 2. You know, like, oh, this is what I think is going to happen, and then because that kind of it throws off the creative process as far as how you want to frame everything out and what is important to that film. You know, so yeah. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, we're going to move on to, we have a little section called Cantina Chat. And we kind of talked about this actually before we recorded. You had a pretty fun weekend, so why don't you tell our listeners what you do this last weekend?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, like I think a few months ago when I talked about the producer coming up to me about my posters, this past Thursday I was at a premiere for a movie I worked on for the past month and a half. It's a horror movie called Beyond Hell. It wasn't an official premiere for like press or anything like that. It was just cast and crew and their families kind of premiere. So I went to Toronto to watch that. It was a lot of fun. It was good seeing my fellow artists on the team and just just seeing our work on the screen. The sound and production design on it is actually incredible. I can't remember what productions the sound guy worked on it for, but the sound guy, I'm pretty sure he worked on Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. So, and it sounded like something that could be of that quality, which is really cool. Then on Saturday, I saw 2 advanced screenings. One for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, on the same day. It was like in early afternoon, I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is phenomenal. You should go see it if you're listening to it. It comes out this week. And then I saw advanced screening for Bumblebee. When I went to go see that one, me and my friend, we hadn't heard a single thing about the movie. So we thought, is this going to be a case of them showing it early because they think it's really good, or just them showing it real early just for the sake of it? Because my friend mentioned, I think it was Mortal Engines or something that came out early. Out early, but it's like it's not doing as well. So, I'm not a big Transformers fan, so I wouldn't have been heartbroken if the movie wasn't good. But when I watched the movie, I realized this is a good movie. Like, I'm not a big fan of the Michael Bay Transformers at all, but this is actually a movie that I could watch again and enjoy. Like, the main character, played by Haley Steinfeld, she was great. I loved her in Edge of 17, and this movie really felt kind of like Edge of 17, but with E.T. as a giant robot.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and then also John Cena actually had some good moments in there too. So that was good.
Cool.
Yeah, so I enjoyed both those films, and I definitely recommend you go see them. And then I still need to see Aquaman whenever it comes out in a couple weeks. And I've heard kind of good things about that one too. So 3 for 3 going good
for a DC movie. That's good. That's good. You know, so So, but yeah, because I don't think Bumblebee doesn't come out till I think the 21st. So that's cool. You got to see it like at least 2 or 3 weeks before it's actually released, which is great. So, did you have to for those kind of screenings? Did you have to fill anything out afterwards, or is more just like, hey, just check out this film?
No. Pretty much what happened was it was through the main theater chain in Canada, Cineplex. Okay. They just put an advertisement for this is the theater you can go see it. This is the time you can go see it. My friend messaged me and he said, hey, do you want to go see it? And I said, sure. And also with the rewards program with that theater chain, I was able to see Bumblebee for free, which is great. So,
which is great. Yeah.
And we arrived there like an hour beforehand, and we were able just to sit down wherever. And it was already like 2/3 full by the time we got there. Wow. We were there like an hour beforehand.
Cool. Yeah.
And then same thing with Spider-Verse. Literally, I just saw that one of the directors tweeted out, hey, you can see Spider-Verse early this weekend. Just type in your city and you could probably see it there.
Oh, cool.
And
oh, wow.
I searched that Toronto up, found it. I messaged my friend. Well, I called my friend who was a huge Spider-Man fan. He was at 1% battery on his phone. I said, "Do you want?" I said, "Before you hang up and your battery dies, do you want to see Spider-Verse this Saturday?" And he said, "Sure." And I said, "Okay, cool. I'm buying tickets."
Yeah.
I hung up.
Cool.
So and I didn't have to sign an NDA or anything afterwards. Like Spider-Verse, it's been like reviews have been out for like weeks or whatever. Bumblebee, I was expecting maybe something since I hadn't heard anything, but like that night there was also like reviews going up. So
so it must have been an already advanced screening for the press as well.
Yeah, I
guess.
Cool.
Yeah, because you don't have to sign no disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
Like, hey, gotcha. Yeah, cool. Oh, well, I mean, that's definitely very geeky. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm part of the 501st.
Oh, cool.
Do you know what the 501st are?
Oh yeah, obviously.
Oh yeah. So I'm a New Hope Stormtrooper. That's
awesome.
The only outfit I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So this weekend, part of my garrison was out at a local, it's called Contigi Park, and it's World War One kind of museum that it's a tribute museum, and they have a nice little park area, and they have tanks in a museum, and they also have this weekend they were doing like a Toy for Tots kind of drive. And so they had some military folks out there and invited the garrison out there. So we had a couple guys out there. So went out there to support them. And they also had Lego trains there. So they had like a Lego train display, which was really cool. So a bunch of people built like these huge train sets and got to see that and share that with the families. So that was fun. And then at our local zoo, they had like Christmas lights, like laser LED kind of lights going on at night. So we checked that out this weekend, and that was a lot of fun getting ready for the holidays. So got to do that this weekend. So it was fun.
That's awesome.
Always fun to geek out, all right, moving on to Twitter trash compactor.
Get in there, you big polio! I don't care what you smell! Get in there and don't worry about it!
All right, so every week we run a poll on Twitter about our previous episode, and so we celebrated our 100th episode last week, and so one of the things that was in the news last week was the University of Turin in Italy did a study and said Wizard of Oz was the most influential film. According to their study, as far as what was referenced in social media, what everybody did in film, and there's all these kind of intricate algorithms that they use to kind of make that score happen. But the first top 4 films were the following, and obviously in Twitter poll, you only got 4 choices, so we had to limit it to 4. So Wizard of Oz, Star Wars, Psycho, and King Kong were the top 4 influential films. So for you, Cam, do you feel like Wizard of Oz is the most influential film for cinema?
I feel like that you could definitely make a case that's in the top 3 or top 2. For me personally, I would say Star Wars is, but I also understand why King Kong would be. I don't know Cinderella. Why did I say Cinderella? Psycho. They're not the same thing. I wouldn't put Psycho up there personally. If I were to put any other movie up there in place of that for the top 4, maybe I'm trying to think of a newer movie. Like definitely The Dark Knight has had a huge influence over the past decade. But I don't think I would say it's the most influential. If anything, maybe top 25.
It was the other thing that was interesting is that according to the study, they said none of the films that they referenced in this top, it's like top 20 or whatever, were made after 1980.
Really?
I was like, whoa. I was like, okay. And so it's interesting from a cinematic perspective. You're like, well, there's a lot of good films after 1980, but the ones that have the most influence, and you kind of see, you kind of like, I guess would be like the butterfly effect or something. So, like you see like these little nuances that are represented in these films. They said it wasn't after 1980. I'm like, wow. I mean, the only thing with Psycho is really kind of that horror thriller genre that you could say really derived from that film, you know? But yeah, it didn't, for our poll, obviously we're a Star Wars podcast, so most of our followers are Star Wars related. So Star Wars won, 91%, and Psycho only got 9%. But like King Kong is also kind of influential in how Star Wars was made too, because like a lot of the stop motion that they used in King Kong, they were still using, in the 80s when, because I think King Kong came out like 1939 or 1940 or something.
No, it was the earlier 30s. I think it was 33.
Yeah, it was pretty early, and using that stop motion, and now even so many years later, monster movies are still a hit, and the Godzilla trailer just dropped, the official trailer. I'm like, yeah, can't wait for that film to come out. So, so I would say definitely King Kong from a cinematic perspective, just the technical spot, what they did with the kind of visual effects. But yeah, I mean, monster movies are not going away, so.
Well, if I were to say any movies after 1980 should definitely be in like that top 20 list, I would definitely say Toy Story, because it's the first CG animated film, The Matrix, and then Jurassic Park, because Jurassic Park also shapes how we look at dinosaurs.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned Toy Story. Definitely from a visual perspective, and I think Pixar really, in particular, their storytelling is. I just love how they tell stories visually, and my one of my favorites is really Up, just because of just that beginning part of how they tell the story of how Carl and Ellie kind of their life, and it's all kind of visual and visual storytelling and not a lot of scripting. I just find that fascinating, how to tell a story visually without using a lot of dialogue, and it's cool. But I agree. Matrix, obviously special effects, you can't beat that. And you're right. Like Jurassic Park, it's how we view dinosaurs now, and the Velociraptors, and I just found this out too. The Velociraptors they use is not really the Velociraptor that is the legit Velociraptor. I guess there's a one that's called a Utah Raptor or something like that, and that's the bigger one. An actual Velociraptor is like kind of smaller. But I was like, I didn't know that. I mean, Velociraptor is a Velociraptor because I know of it from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's the science, It's like, no, that's not how the Velociraptor was. I guess looked. I guess it was smaller or something. But yeah, it's still. I agree with that. And like you said, like Christopher Nolan and Dark Knight. I mean, it's so good. It's such a really good film. But so moving on, we got some news of the week.
And now the Star Wars news of the week.
All right, so first up, now Cam, did you see this? Avengers Endgame is the biggest trailer launch in history.
I did. I was in my hotel the morning of, and I was waking up like every hour after I fell asleep, and then falling back asleep thinking, all right, it's time to wake up and see the trailer. But it would be like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. each time I woke up. And then I finally woke up. It was around 8 o'clock. And I was like, okay, probably another hour, since I heard that it was coming out at 9 Eastern. So I open up Twitter. And I immediately
knew it was going to drop. I just didn't know like the actual time. Yeah.
And then I immediately go up to Twitter. I see someone that I follow just tweet Avengers a million times over. I said, oh, it's here. So
it's here.
My girlfriend, she's still asleep. So I just go over into the little chair in the corner of the hotel room. I put my headphones in and I watch it with like as intense as possible. And it was, and I was just constantly watching it over and over again. And it's such a good trailer, because all it gives you is the main 6 characters as to where they are after Infinity War, and then just like the little thing of Ant-Man at the end.
Wow. Yeah. It kind of goes to show like the other thing that like even though Paul Rudd, you're like, oh, he's not a superhero. uh, The fact that I think he's perfectly casted as Ant-Man.
Mhm.
Just for even just in how they use the trailer, because it's like, the devastation that we saw, and now you're picking up the pieces, and then at the end you're like, it's Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, and it's like, hey, you're gonna let me in. It's just like it's so perfect, such a great trailer.
Mhm.
So here's what it said. Endgame had 289 million viewers over 24-hour period, surpassing Avengers Infinity War, which had 236 million views, and The Lion King had 224.6 millions over the same time measurement. So 24-hour period, it had 289 million views.
That's like over 2/3 of the United States watching it over the course of 24 hours, or even better. That's like 5 or 6 times the amount of like 10, nearly 10 times the amount of population of Canada watching it. Even more. And Canada only has like 34 million people, so it's not as impressive a metric, but still.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, I wonder if that's unique views too, because again, like when any of these things come out, it's like, oh, you got to watch it and then rewatch it to kind of, if you missed anything and see if there's any kind of Easter eggs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm super excited for this film. I think it's going to be awesome. And the fact that it's already kind of blowing out from a trailer review, I'm like, yeah, I think people really still are invested in, in these comic book characters. So I think that's awesome. All right. In other news, this came from comicbook.com. Solo, a Star Wars story score, was disqualified from the Oscars. And really, it's basically they forgot to turn in their homework. So the article goes, as the calendar moves towards the end of the year, Oscar buzz is beginning to pick up, and the Academy has started sifting through potential nominees in the Best Original Song and Best Original Score categories, disqualifying those who don't meet the requisites. Solo, a Star Wars story, the latest entry in the Star Wars franchise, is one of the 4 movies to have been disqualified. According to Variety, the score from John Powell with themes from John Williams was cut from the list of potential nominees after it was submitted too late, not meeting the Academy's November 15th deadline for submissions. What do you think about that, Cam?
That's disappointing because I actually really like the Solo score. It's a lot of fun. It's really energetic, and it also doesn't feel like it's just using riffs from the original trilogy. It's adding its own thing. I obviously love the track when they're first in the Kessel Run and they're evading the TIE fighters, where it's basically just original trilogy motifs and melodies.
Yes.
But I also love Mine Mission and the Breakout on Kessel. And I also really love the Han's theme and then all the stuff on Corellia.
Yes.
And the train heist too. And then obviously you can't forget Enfys Nest theme, which is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, it's so good. Yeah, it's really well done. So it's like, you would think, being Lucasfilm, they kind of would know these deadlines, don't you think? Like, hey, if we want to get nominated, because at the end of the year, there's always a push from the studios. Like, they have a lot of screenings to the Academy, like, to kind of re-emphasize. Like, I know Marvel was pushing Black Panther, which did get a couple nominations, or they're like, hey, we want Black Panther to get some nominations here. I just find it odd that Lucasfilm, like, oh, we forgot to submit this in time. It's like it's a miss. I feel like you're missing and selling yourself short. But it kind of adds to the whole Solo story.
Which sucks because like I don't think I've ever seen like a positive article about Solo. It's always negative, going like, oh, the production's a mess. Oh, there's rumors of Alden not being good. There's all these different things. But in the end, Solo's just a fun movie. It's a very easy rewatch. It adds a bit more depth to Han. It adds some fun moments, some fun characters. It's a really good looking movie. There's a lot of great things about it. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like the, internet clickbait storm kind of thing, because it always goes towards negative attention. Like I like to be positive. I don't like being negative. It physically hurts me to be negative. So seeing like all these negative stories on Solo and The Last Jedi and all that, and just seeing people just like constantly rag on things and go, oh man, why can't I just find one site where they every once in a while they'll just have an article going like, you know what, this scene from Solo was pretty cool, or hey, let's appreciate some things about these movies that we're so passionate about, exactly. Which is why I don't watch it that much, but I do appreciate the channel Cinema Wins, because it's just the guy going, hey, here are things that I like about the movie.
Oh, right. Yeah. But I think this is just like a perfect bookend to just somewhat of a mess of a movie that no one seemed to get right, or put that love that the fans really like this movie, but you forgot to turn your homework, man. Like, it's like, come on, but yeah, it's disappointing that won't be there. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that means that they, I don't know if they got in for the Golden Globes. I'm not sure. I thought I saw some nominations for the Golden Globes.
They got nominated for the Grammys. Last Jedi for its score in general, and then Solo for Mind Mission.
Okay, cool. Gotcha. Well, there you go. So Grammys there. Hopefully maybe John Powell will get some recognition there. And then finally, this comes from CBR.com. Star Wars Disneyland Millennium Falcon is almost ready for flight. Punch and Chewie may not be the most common thing you overhear at Disneyland, but that's going to change very soon, since Star Wars Millennium Falcon has landed at Anaheim, California theme park. Disneyland shared the first official photo of the life-size 1x1 scale Millennium Falcon, which is part of the upcoming Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run attraction on Friday. The ride, scheduled to open in the summer of 2019, will be one of the first attractions for the upcoming Star Wars Galaxy Edge section of the park. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of this, Cam. So what are your thoughts on Galaxy's Edge?
I'm so ready for this. I probably won't be like the first person in line, or like even be in there like the first couple months. I'll try and go in like a month where it's like, there isn't as many people there, just so I can get more time in the Falcon, or I can get more time in like all the different attractions and stuff. And I'm glad that Galaxy's Edge is coming first to California, since I would much rather go to California for a vacation to Disney World, because there's like LA, there's Anaheim, there's all that around there. But if it's Disney World, that's just Orlando there's nothing else really around there. So so that's definitely something that I'll definitely really be looking forward to. Plus, you get to walk on the Millennium Falcon and go in the Millennium Falcon.
I know. I'm as excited as that as the we've talked about this before in the podcast, but just going into the cantina, I know it won't be like the New Hope cantina, but it will be pretty close. And I'm just like, I just want to sit there and just sit in there like the whole day. But just they released, some aerial photos, and it kind of looks like a model, but then like, wait, this is like for real. And it looks fantastic. The official photo that they released on Facebook, I mean, it looks great. It's like, okay,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
This is awesome. Yeah. And then also Nerdist reported that the ride for the motion simulator ride for the will have 3 unique film crew roles. Their skill levels changing by the end of the ride, anywhere from the stunning victory to a big crash. But Nerds reports that the ride is expected to be hosted by Star Wars The Clone Wars Hondo Anoka. And awesome. I'm like, dude, Hondo, I love Hondo from The Clone Wars. So I'm interested to see if that's going to play out. So that'd be great, All right. So I just want to thanks again for listening to another episode of WSTR Galactic Public Access. Once again, you can check us out on the social media, WSTR Media, You can comment, tweet, rate us on iTunes, email us at mailbox@wstrmedia.com. You can leave us voicemail at 630-557-WSTR. That's 630-557-9787. Leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on an upcoming podcast. I know we promised you the thank you episodes, but since Aaron and Heather are not here, we're going to save that for next week. Once again, you can catch our back catalog of episodes at podcast.wstrmedia.com. We got merch, shirts, hoodies, socks, stickers, mugs, whatever you want. Store.wstrmedia.com. Cam, where can everyone find you on the socials?
On the socials, people can find me on Twitter and Instagram under Cam VFX. So it's spelled CAMVEEFX. On there.
Awesome.
So on Twitter, I post my artwork whenever I have artwork. Otherwise, I'll just like tweet, "Oh, I saw this movie," or I'll just be like replying to my friends on Twitter or something like that. Just making like dad jokes or whatever. And then on Instagram, I just exclusively post artwork. So if you're just wanting to see my artwork, then you just go to Instagram. I'll post it all there. It's no worries.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I also have a website. So if you want to see my artwork as well as see some visual effects work I've done, motion graphics work, and editing work, you can find it at www.camsharpevfx.com. So Sharpe is spelled with an E at the end, and then VFX is just the letters VFX.
Got it. Very cool. Seems simple enough.
Yeah.
Definitely check out Cam stuff. It's amazing, especially as we just talked about in the episode, just those retro posters. I really feel like you hit it out of the park and got the feel of A New Hope and translating that into other films that they're fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, so good. Okay, I'm gonna leave you with one other question before we end this. What are you most looking forward to in Star Wars coming up in 2019?
I'm gonna have to say Episode 9, just because that's what we've had at 7 and 8, so it's the thing I've had the most build up for. But I'm also really excited for obviously Clone Wars, The Mandalorian, and then also just seeing the prospect of Galaxy's Edge and planning eventual vacations there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Let all the crazies go first.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to spend 10 hours in line for for a ride? I'd rather let all that kind of die down a little bit. But it will be interesting to see the reaction of the park, once it's finally opened and getting a little bit more detailed of that. So yeah. Now, are you planning on going to Star Wars Celebration?
No, I originally was planning on to, because the tickets they went up on sale in like August, but I didn't have a full-time gig at that time, so I was like, all right, I can't afford tickets. And then when I finally did get this VFX gig with that I was doing in October, November, and a bit in December, I was like, oh, I can probably afford to go now. And then I saw they only had Sunday and Monday tickets left, and I said, that isn't worth it, especially because I would need to bus to Chicago and back from Toronto. But hopefully they do a Star Wars Celebration in New York, or even bring one to Canada, because there's Star Wars fans in Canada. They should come here.
There are. Yes.
We have at least two here.
Right. Exactly. Well, if you're ever in Chicago, you're always welcome. It's in our backyard, so we have to go. So it's going to be that. That is probably what I'm looking more, because it's going to be more of a experience. But obviously, everything you mentioned, it's going to be fun, and whatever going to happen with the Episode 9, I think is it will be a good end cap to 2019. But that's awesome. Okay, so now all the ways to get a hold of us. Once again, Cam, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Follow him on Twitter and Instagram so you can see all this amazing artwork. Next week, episode 102, we are talking about Attack of the Clones Revisited. Yes, it came out in 2002. And so we're using episode 1 and 2 to kind of go back to the prequels and Attack of the Clones. Who's going to be your, all right, I know you kind of talked about this a little bit, but who's going to be your hero character for the retro poster for Attack of the Clones?
Yoda.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. Awesome. Well, Cam, every episode we end this with this crazy little thing that we do, and since it's just me, I'm just gonna do it. This is podcasting. All right, thanks, Cam.
No problem.
Really appreciate it.